Hello and welcome to another edition of I Am AAPC, where we look at the journeys of AAPC members and how they ended up in medical coding and in the revenue cycle side of healthcare. I am AAPC Alex, and today with me is Morgan Scott. How are you, Morgan?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Now, when we sent out a call for people to connect with about I Am AAPC, you sent a great story about a single mom trying to make her path and find a career. Would you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and share your journey with us?
I am from Clayton. Clayton's this little small rural town in Northeast New Mexico. I began my healthcare career in 2015. I started out registering patients for outpatient services and also did reception at a rural health clinic here. From there, I transitioned to the business office where I did insurance follow-up, appeals, denial resolution, and billing. I've been directly applying codes for 1 year, and my experience leading up till now has proven to be very beneficial to my current position.
Okay. And what did you know about medical coding and this world prior to that first position?
Just that they dealt with charts, like they took clinical documentation from doctors and physicians and nursing staff, and they created it into billing codes for the insurance process. And doing that just really interested me.
So what were you doing previously? And do you remember, so were you just searching for a job and searching online and found this information? Tell us a little bit about, we want to get deep into the background, Morgan.
Oh, okay.
And yes. So like the struggle and all of those things.
I just talked to, I had some coworkers that were also dealing with the medical HIM side of things, and that was something that I haven't explored yet. Yeah, that aspect kind of intrigued me, and
yeah.
I don't know.
Morgan, did you have a desire to work in healthcare when you were growing up in high school and things like that?
Well, no, I come from a family of teachers, and that was what I initially ventured out to do, was early childhood development. And life happens, detours, speed bumps. I think everybody can attest to that. And I found my way in healthcare and ended up really loving it.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're a single mom.
Yes.
And did you, as a young mother, were you seeking a career change or a new career as a young mother?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And were you working full-time at home, taking care of the family at that time, or did you have a career established?
Well, I was a stay-at-home mom previously, before I became a stay-at-home mom. But after I started back in the workforce, I definitely wanted a career. And not saying anything bad about stay-at-home moms. That was just a blessing for me that I could stay home. But I wanted to be more than just mom. I wanted something I could be proud of myself in, outside of everything a mother entails.
Yes, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so you seek work. You're a stay-at-home mom seeking employment. Did you jump right into medical coding, or did you explore several possibilities before then? Where else did you work during that exploration phase?
I did behavioral health before I went into the local hospital that I work at now.
Okay. Doing what? Was that on the revenue cycle side or
no? It was
side,
like direct patient care, like a behavior management specialist, working with kids that needed behavioral health therapy.
Okay, that would be challenging, I'm sure.
Yes,
And you thought that was not a path for you?
right. I
Okay.
liked the behind the scenes aspect of healthcare.
Okay. And did you get a glimpse into that while working as a behavioral health specialist, or did you have friends? Did you have friends working in the revenue cycle side while you're working in behavioral health?
Not there, because my area is so rural. Behavioral health and mental health is very hard, I guess, to like the resources are just very limited in an area like I live. And there was some transitions of care, and insurance remapping of our state that place that I worked at had to close. And so before that happened, I had reached out to my local hospital and they had positions open in the revenue cycle, and I got my start there.
Okay, so did you know much about the revenue cycle side of healthcare prior to that call?
No.
No. Okay, and so they opened that door for you.
Yes.
And did they say you must be certified to work here, or did they say we have these jobs open, we'll train you? How did that work, Morgan?
They had these jobs open at the front desk, working like registering for outpatients like labs, x-rays. You come in to get an outpatient ultrasound if you're like receiving OB care, things like that. And I would deal with registering those patients and verifying their insurance, etc.
And so it's not like you said, hey, I want to be a medical coder and got certified through AAPC and got that first job. You started in a non-traditional, not a coding job, but you're on the administrative side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And was it through that position that you got to interact with the coders and the revenue cycle side more? Okay.
Exactly.
All right. And what was the appeal to you versus what you were doing?
Just all the possibilities that coding and the HIM department can open for you. You know, like you don't have to just do coding. You know, there's auditing, there's compliance, there's risk adjustment. And that just really appealed to me, especially being a single mom, that there's so many options and room to grow.
Yes. Yeah. And that's interesting you say that, because oftentimes in my interviews with our members, even though most members start out with a CPC, they end up in those different places, auditing and compliance and different areas. So that's awesome. So at what point did you find AAPC in all of this, Morgan?
I had some coworkers, some with AAPC, some with other organizations like AHIMA. And I just talked to both of them at work and said, hey, what do you like about AAPC? And I just kind of weighed my options about what path I wanted to take. And AAPC really seemed like it was right for me.
Okay.
With what AAPC had to offer and what I might want to use with that, where to go from there.
And you're currently certified?
Yes, I have my CPC.
Okay. And when did you take your exam for that and pass?
May of this year.
Past? Wow. All right. So all of this is new.
Yes.
Pretty new, relatively.
Yes.
And tell us about your studies for the exam. And we see the challenge of studying and trying to pass the exam. We see that in our Facebook group and online. What was studying and preparing for the CPC exam like for you, Morgan?
Well, it was hectic and as a single mom, but also inspiring. I began my coding classes at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. and navigating online classes for myself, as well as a new normal for my child, like her online class. It was just really stressful. But there are nights we both sat at the table together and we did our homework at the same time. She had vocabulary and I kind of did too, because I was learning about medical terminology. And that was kind of neat to see, kind of sit down with your child and be doing homework together. Uh, she didn't quite understand what I was doing. She thought I was some secret spy because there's all these codes everywhere. So that was kind of interesting. But as a single mom, you're just mentally, emotionally, and physically drained. And there's just times where you feel like you have nothing left to pour out of an empty cup. And, there's little subtle reminders that your child remind you of while you're pushing through the struggle and the positive example you're setting for them. So in the end, like, that's just all what any parent really wants, is to create a good life for their children and pass on a way of life that you both want to be proud of. And AAPC gave me that sense of accomplishment, and I'm like forever grateful. I did take the AAPC course. I purchased the study guides. I did the practice exams. I've had a tutor, and there's all kinds of platforms that AAPC gives you. Like the Facebook page. That's a good place to ask questions. There's workshops and all kinds of things available to you, and I utilized all of that.
You were determined to pass the exam and succeed.
Yes.
Awesome. You had a good feeling that this is it. This is what I want to do.
Yes, I found my niche.
Now, what was the exam like?
I took it online, and they do 2 parts. They do part 1 and part 2. Each part was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Setting up was a challenge, but once you have it figured out and you reach out to other members and what advice they had, it definitely made it easier. I liked the 2 parts just because that gave me a little break in between the 2 parts, just to kind of refocus, take a break, take a breather, and then get back into it.
You were one of our first online examinees. That's all very new for AAPC.
Yes.
Yes. And do you have any recommendations for students who may be contemplating whether to take it in person or online?
I guess that just depends on how you are as a test taker and maybe a learner, if you might have any disabilities. I think it just it's very unique to the test taker. So I probably could have done the whole 5-hour and 40-minute test start to finish. No problem, but I'm an overthinker and I know my nerves get the best of me. So I know there's a lot of people like that too, and I tend to second guess myself. So I liked the 2 parts. So I guess it's just, there's a lot of options to weigh.
Yeah. Well, going even further, you're a member of our Facebook group.
Yes.
And which is a huge community. If you're watching this or listening to this on our podcast, there are over 40,000 members of students, just like you were, and veteran coders, just like you are now. And you see all the questions come through, Morgan, and a lot of similar ones each week from new students. What advice would you give to students who are struggling with preparing for the exam? Did you struggle?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I didn't pass my first time. I had to take it again.
Okay.
And don't get discouraged. You just keep at it. Use your resources, ask those questions. It's nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of people don't pass their first time. And I did find out, it's not that, like, employers don't ask you how many times did you take the test before you got your certification. They just look for the certification. So if you take it 1 time, 4 times, 7 times, 11 times, like that's like once you pass, like how many times it took to get to that point is like no longer important. You know, that certification now trumps that.
Yep. Once you have it, you have it.
Yes.
And
And
you just go
there was
ahead.
a lot of questions on Facebook that I didn't even think to ask. And I'm like, ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to follow this thread. Or there are some questions that I was thinking, but might have been too introverted and scared to actually post and ask this question because, you know, that
Mhm.
is a large community.
Mhm.
But I just sometimes you just have to put yourself out there. You are surprised by the answers that you get and the support and the encouragement.
Wow. And when you passed your exam this past May, um, you'll kind of have to fill in your work history a little bit. You shared that with me a little bit at the beginning, but were you still in that register type of position in May when you passed?
No, I actually got to transition into the medical records HIM department prior to passing my test. I internally transferred once a coding position opened up. So I was able to start coding before I passed my test.
Wow, wow, wow. So we know the challenge that some members have finding their first job after passing the
Mm,
exam, but you stepped into a position that puts you in the healthcare world to start.
mhm.
And as doors opened in the department that you wanted to work in opened up, you were right there. They knew you and you had a relationship.
Yes, I had just finished my classes. So while I was studying for my exam, I was also starting a new job as a coder.
Wow, congratulations. That is an
Thank you.
amazing story. All right. And so I'm sure when you got that coding job, your first coding job, and this is just a few months back, there might have been some nerves and some butterflies in your stomach thinking, wow, I've prepared for this. Here we go.
Mhm.
How was it? How was it when you went in and started coding and putting all of your knowledge to into action?
That it was exciting. I felt like a little kid in a candy store, and that's when I knew like I picked the right career path when you walk into a job position like that after preparing and studying and putting all your blood, sweat, tears, and lack of sleep and extra coffee or whatever, you know, it was a really good feeling and a sense of accomplishment.
Wow, that is great. Now, you're just a few months into it, so I'm kind of jumping the gun here. But you brought up all of the different possibilities that you could go into. Now that you've been coding for a little bit, are there areas that resonate with you, and you think, hey, maybe I'll try being an auditor or a compliance manager or educator?
It's still so new right now. I'm focusing on getting my experience and building on that and just learning everything I can right now. I do want to pursue going into like getting my associates in HIM, maybe get a specialty certification. I did get my test results back from AAPC after I had contacted them when I passed, and I wanted to know what areas I did well in, what areas I struggled with. That also helped me after I didn't pass my first test, knowing what areas I needed to struggle, where I needed to study with, and what areas I knew I was already good in. But scored really high in the surgery aspect of it and compliance, and I know there are specialty coding that you can get for surgery, and there are obviously compliance too. So that's an option, like in the future. But
All
just
right. Well,
focusing on my experience now.
that's right. So one step at a time, just enjoy
Yes.
this moment. And this moment could be years. You may love it and just want to hang out for a little bit doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, and again, what a great example to your daughter. And I'm sure what a great sense of accomplishment you must feel.
I do. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, Morgan, thank you for sharing that story with us. And we're proud of you. It's so amazing and fun to see new coders who, I mean, this is literally brand new for you. You've done it. You've conquered the exam. You conquered the curriculum and then the exam during COVID, and took the online exam, and you're employed. You're working in the field that you sought to work in. So, way to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, any final words or thoughts that you have for someone who may be watching this, Morgan, who may be thinking about this as a career path?
Just if you have any questions, Facebook and is a really good resource to ask questions, and the AAPC website. And if you have any questions, feel free to talk to me, and I will be there and encourage and cheer you on. It's just like I had that for me, and I loved it.
Wonderful. All right. So if you're a new coder or thinking about getting in the industry, hop into our Facebook group. Morgan might be the one answering your questions on there. So keep a lookout for her in our Facebook group. Morgan, thank you for sharing your story, and best of luck to you as you venture into the different parts of the healthcare revenue cycle.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, Morgan, you stick with me for a moment. Everybody, thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to watch us and subscribe, or watch us on YouTube or on our social media channels, or listen on our podcast. It can be found on your favorite podcast distribution app. Just search for the AAPC Podcast. Thank you, everybody.